y'all, I am back and I have more of your Let's Not Meet stories that I'm really nervous to read today. As per usual, I picked out 3 stories and we're gonna hop right into it. Except my Telegram is not loading, so... Okay, just kidding, it loaded. This first story says, and we're starting off strong. To my ex who tried to choke me in the middle of the night at the park, let's not meet again. Trigger warning, violence. Hey Courtney, on my Slenderman outside my window story, I said I was going to send more stories in. But then life happened and I got super busy, but I'm back with one of my psycho ex's stories. There's a lot to it since the relationship lasted about 3 years, but this one in particular holds a very large spot in my mind constantly because I genuinely feared for my life. When I say my ex, I'm referring to my at the time boyfriend, by the way, who is also the biological father of my kid. For context, I started dating this guy in my junior year of high school, and of course, everything was good in the beginning, until it wasn't. He became a very toxic and very possessive person to the point that he would get upset if I hung out with my male cousins and made me cut contact with most of my friends, especially my guy friends. I know, so many red flags, and I wish I had gotten out of that horrible relationship much earlier. Anyway, by this point we were fresh out of high school, and I had gotten my first job at the cell phone company I mentioned in one of my other stories. We were constantly fighting and arguing, and this day was no exception. He was mad at me because I got assigned to work with a male coworker, as if I had any say on who I worked with. I was already having a pretty rough week because things were really bad at home with my parents and I'd been picking up extra shifts to avoid being home as much as possible. My coworker, we'll call him George, noticed I wasn't okay, and he offered to do my closing duties for me as long as we left together. He didn't want me walking through the parking lot by myself at night. We closed at 9:30 p.m. During the time George was closing, I was texting my ex to try and convince him to meet up with me somewhere after my shift so we could talk. But he kept saying that he was busy and he couldn't see me that day, but deep down, I knew it was because he was still mad at me for having a male coworker. We closed the store and George walked me to my car and we left. I didn't go home though. I drove to a park that was nearby and just parked somewhere to cry because I didn't want to go home, as I knew my parents would most likely be fighting about something when I got home and I wanted to get there after they went to bed. I got a text from George asking why I was all alone at the park. I looked up and saw his truck parked on the other side of the parking lot. He then called me and asked if I was okay and if he could wait there in his truck to make sure no creep would try to get close to me. So I asked instead if he would come sit with me because I really needed someone to talk to. He parked next to me and got into my passenger seat. We talked for a few minutes and I sort of told him about my problems and he just sat there and listened to me. It was all I really needed at that point. All of a sudden we see some headlights approaching us, and once the car was close enough, I recognized it as my ex's car. He parked on the other side of my car and started honking. I mumbled, "Fuck," and George asked what was wrong. I told him that was my boyfriend's car. He told me not to get out. I should have listened. I told him it was okay and he shouldn't get out of the car, just in case. I exited my car and saw that he was with a friend of his, but the guy stayed in the car as my ex started speed walking towards me. He started yelling at me, asking who I was cheating on him with, and just saying a bunch of insulting and degrading things to me. George got out of the car and walked over to us, but I told him to leave. I did not want him to get involved or hurt simply because he wanted to be nice to the new girl at work. He insisted that he wanted to stay. I'm assuming he could sense things were about to get violent, but I begged him to please leave and told him I would be okay. He gave up, walked to his truck, and told me to let him know when I made it home safe. I saw his truck drive away slowly and turned my attention to my ex that was still yelling at me, saying that George was a little pussy for not staying after he fucked his girl. I told him nothing happened with him that night or ever, and explained to him that he followed me to the park because he saw that I pulled in and it's on his way home, and he just wanted to make sure that I was okay because I'd been pretty upset all day. I asked him how he even got there if he was so busy he couldn't meet up with me even when I asked him to, and he gave me some lame excuse and said he was going to drop off his friend and saw me pull into the park, so he turned around and followed me there. He then asked me what I was even doing at the park, and I also explained the whole not wanting to go home thing and that I just wanted a peaceful place to cry. We got into this big fight, and the whole time he's yelling at me and getting in my face, grabbing my arm so I wouldn't leave because I kept trying to back away from him. At one point he said something that really angered me. I can't remember what it was, but I tried getting away from him and he wouldn't let me go. So I freed one of my arms and slapped him across the face. He let go of me and touched his cheek. I took the opportunity to make a run for my car, but he was quicker than me and yanked my hair back. I twisted my foot in the process and grabbed his hand, trying to untie it from my hair. He then slammed me against the side of my car and put one hand around my throat while he softly slapped my cheek with the fingers on his other hand, still yelling at me and calling me names. I closed my eyes and tuned him out. He was saying things, but I couldn't hear him anymore. I was losing air and my head felt like it was going to explode. All I could think was, I'm gonna die tonight. He's gonna leave me here and my mom is gonna find me in some ditch. Suddenly, I felt his grip loosen and opened my eyes to see his friend pulling him back and shoving him to the ground. He then turned to me and said, "Get in your car and leave." I stood there, frozen, until he yelled at me again and saw my ex trying to fight him off, so I snapped out of it and took off. I drove straight home, almost wrecking my car trying to do so because the tears wouldn't let me see anything. The whole thing lasted longer than I thought it did. I got home around 1 a.m. Everyone was asleep when I got there. I immediately got in the shower, then went to bed. I wore turtlenecks for the following days to cover up the fingerprints on my neck. No one noticed, but George did ask how things went after he left. Of course I lied and said my ex calmed down and we went our ways shortly after he left. He didn't buy it, but didn't press me for more. Things continued to be bad for months after, so there are more stories like this one, but I'll send those a different time. Thank you for reading if you got this far, and just so you know, I don't mind sharing this. I find that it helps me heal to talk about it, and hopefully someone out there might find my experience helpful and get out of a similar situation before it's too late. Abusive men never change. I moved as far as I could from this man, and I hope to never, ever see him again. I am so I'm trying not to swear. I'm so sorry and it's hard not to swear sometimes because I feel like it emphasizes what I'm saying. So I'm just gonna do it. I'm so fucking sorry that you went through that. That is traumatizing and terrible and disgusting, and Nar is here. Nar has arrived. I genuinely can't imagine going through anything like that, and I am very proud of you for sharing your story with us and being able to heal from it. And I agree. I hope you never ever see that man again because you don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. This next story says, and this one's a little heavy, I'm not gonna lie. I read most of it, I think, but there are trigger warnings. But this one's called, I had to wrestle a knife out of his hands on our first date. And this says trigger warning, drug use, suicide, emotionally/mentally abusive relationships. Sorry, I'm like doing this with my hand because Nar's right here and he's like licking, I don't know what I'm doing. Nar might be loud because when Nar is needy, he's loud. So if he gets too loud, I'm gonna stop filming for a little bit. But we're gonna try to get into the story. To Jay, I hope we never meet again, but chances are high we will. I will try to get through this fast, but I might be rambly. Just typing this is rough, but I want to share my story. This past August, I met this guy on Bumble. I'll call him Jay, since this is very J-name behavior. I immediately liked this guy just based off his pictures and our conversation. It takes a lot to get my personal info, but I felt so safe with him, and we exchanged Snapchats. The first message he sends me is about the recent passing of his younger brother by suicide. As someone who deals with mental health issues myself, my heart sank, and I asked if I could do anything. After talking for a couple days, he snaps me one morning saying he feels like death. I assumed maybe he had COVID, a cold, or just a bad hangover. When I asked him what was wrong, he said he had overdosed on fentanyl the night before. I had to talk him off the ledge, and we ended up exchanging numbers to go get coffee later that day since he hadn't been eating or drinking anything. After the date, I take him home and head back to my house. Everything was great, and I was gushing about him to my best friend G over FaceTime when he calls. His voice is shaking, and he tells me that if I don't get there ASAP, he's going to the park to find his drug dealer and kill him. I rush to his place and fight the knife out of his hand, etc., etc. We won't get into that or the horrible things he said. That was just date 1 out of 5. I'll breeze through these next encounters. Date number 2. A FaceTime call after a bar where he does hard drugs in front of G and I. G had to leave that night because the things he said gave her a pretty bad panic attack. After this, I refused to let him talk to her. Maybe should have been a sign I should have left too. Among other things, there were just various threats of suicide and things like, anything you do to yourself, I'll do to myself 10 times worse type of thing. I tried breaking things off after this, but date number 3 was a call after he was picked up off the street for attempting. The call was from the girl that found him, and she told me after calling everyone in his contacts, I was the only one that picked up. He proceeded to call me a cunt and bitch and every other name in the book for having the nerve to leave him at his lowest. Final date 4, we went to a nice fashion event he was bartending at. We end up going back to the place he works, I'll call it the bar. We order drinks and I joke that we should have a passionate love affair and break things off suddenly the next day, since Red, Taylor's version, was coming out. He said, quote, I'm not one for breaking hearts. He proceeds to ignore me the whole night talking to other girls until a creepy guy comes up asking how much I charge. In a way to tell him to fuck off, I mess with him for a bit. Jay comes back and yells at me for supposedly being a sex worker. First, there's nothing at all wrong with that. But second, the other guy was literally harassing me. We get into a screaming match that leads outside until he kicks me out, bans me from the bar, and makes me walk in the cold about 4 blocks to my car. I'm still incredibly traumatized from the whole situation and don't know how to trust anyone. I lost most of my friends during these events because they couldn't trust me. I almost lost my job for being too upset at work or being late. I failed classes dealing with this crap, and even my family could tell something was wrong but couldn't figure out why. Thankfully, G stayed by my side and is the main reason I'm out of this whole thing. Now, I learned the editor on my college final film project is his coworker and her boyfriend is his best friend. So to Jay, may we never meet again, but chances are high you're in my near future. P.S. We also work a couple blocks from each other and he knows where I live, so I don't want to report anything to the police in case he finds out it was me. I'm still afraid he'll show up at either location. I'm a little bit confused because you said there were 5 dates, but you only talked about 4, so maybe the 5th one's just like irrelevant, I don't know, or maybe you didn't mean to put 5. But what the what? It is so crazy. Like, okay, I literally saw, my camera might stop recording, so if I'm in a rant and it just cuts off, that's why. I saw a TikTok the other day of this girl who had been messaging somebody off a dating app, and basically he was completely normal. I'm assuming this is probably similar to your situation. Completely normal person, but as soon as she like tried to cancel their date because she had something come up or she wasn't feeling well, something like that, he goes crazy, like so possessive, so manipulative, so weird, you guys. I wish I could find the TikTok. I didn't like it. I know I didn't like it. I just scrolled past it after I watched it. I wish I had it so I could show you, but you might know what I'm talking about. I think it was pretty viral when I saw it. But this guy went absolutely insane because she was canceling. He's like, you don't actually like me, this and this and this, like gaslighting the shit out of her. And she was like, this is way too intense for me. Like, I just told you I couldn't go out. If you were like, that's fine, like let's go out another night, I totally would have gone out with you, but you're being way too intense for me. And he was like, this is too intense, like so scary. And that is probably a lot like your situation. Like he was probably so normal, so cool when you guys were talking, and then all of a sudden it just flips. And he's like this crazy person. Like, and it's unfortunate because it's very sad. His mental health is obviously declining very quickly. And if he's attempting this many times or threatening to attempt this many times, obviously there's something seriously wrong. And so it's very sad, but that should have never been put on you, ever. But now we're gonna move on to the last story. This one says, the time I was so scared, I almost became a true crime victim. This happened a couple of years ago. I was on a busy intersection corner in broad daylight, waiting for the pedestrian signal to turn so I could cross the intersection to get to the other side of the street. I was only a block or so away from home, but I wanted to stop by an adult smoking shop, a dispensary. It's legal in California. Suddenly, some guy reeking of pot comes up from behind me and stands a little too close for comfort, but not quite enough that I could really do or say anything about it without acting like the weird one in the situation. He looked fairly normal, maybe in his late 20s, not too unpleasant to look at, but not enough that I'm interested. I make the mistake of making eye contact with him, and he seems to take that as a sign for him to start chatting me up. He asks me where I'm headed, and because I'm already nervous just from this random person talking to me, I can't think of a lie in time for it to be convincing. So I tell him I'm going to get some adult smoking materials at the dispensary across the street. He goes, oh, what a coincidence, me too, which sets off alarm bells in my head. Though I kind of reassure myself that it's not that weird that this random person's going to the same place when it's across the street. So I smile pleasantly in that, haha, cool, please leave me alone though way, and say something like, ah, neat. But of course, guys like this either can't take the hint or deliberately play ignorant, so he continues the conversation. Want to come with me, he asks. A spike of fear shoots up my spine, because I realize he's asked me a question that on the surface seems innocuous. But it's also a question I can't exactly say no to since I just told him I was going there anyways. Now in hindsight, it's super easy to say, you still could have said no, or just tell me you're not interested and go on your own. But I figured that while this guy is definitely being sus, it's not like he could do anything to me in a store full of people. And if he did, surely someone would see and step in to help me. Never assume that, by the way. Always have an exit strategy regardless. Also, it's the middle of the day, so it's not like he even has the cover of darkness to drag me off somewhere. So we enter the store, and the guy's just making casual small talk and asking what I like and stuff. And I'm trying to give the workers there the help me eyes, but they're not getting the message. Suddenly the guy goes, hey, I just remembered. I actually have some at my studio next door. If you want, I can give you some for free. Why don't you come with me? It's at this point that I would like to explain something to anyone who's never been targeted like this before. Whatever you're thinking in this moment about how the proper way to react to this is, there is no way to tell what you would actually do when put in the situation. Of course you think that's the biggest red flag there could ever possibly be. Who the heck would actually go with this guy, following to some private location? And I'm going to be 100% honest. Before this exact moment, I assumed I'd behave in that exact way. That if I was ever in this spot, I'd simply tell the guy to F off and walk away to somewhere safe. But in that moment, the primal fear that shot through me was like a vice on my logic and reasoning skills. I couldn't think, and it was like my body went on autopilot. I just followed him, my heart beating out of my chest and my fight or flight response slowly kicking in. By the time it did, I was already in a hallway of the building next door, still walking next to him. He was still being perfectly casual and nice, but it took him saying, just wait right here, I have to use the restroom real quick, and I'll be right back, for my sense to finally come back. As soon as he closed the door, I ran as silently as I could back down the hall and out of the front door. I took a roundabout way back to my place in case he caught up to me, but I didn't see him again after that. When I got home, I was too shaken up to go to my empty apartment unit, so I went to my best friend's unit downstairs. I told her I felt like such an idiot for following him, but also terrified that I even let it get that far. I couldn't understand why I didn't just immediately make some excuse and walk away. I'm almost positive that guy had nothing good planned for me in his studio. I could feel that in my gut about him from the moment I saw him. So why did I allow it to go on for so long? My friend, also a girl, told me that we can never know how we'll deal with a stressful situation until we've experienced it. The mind does all kinds of weird things when fearful, many of which are behaviors that don't even make any sense. She helped me calm down a lot, but I think I'll always be haunted by the thought that, on that day, I could have come so close to something unspeakable happening to me, and it was in large part due to how I mishandled the situation and further endangered myself. I sometimes still think about it, and a chilling thought that comes to mind is how many other people have experienced that exact feeling when put into situations they know are extremely dangerous. And how many of those people were not so lucky as I, to have found their sense again in that critical moment to escape. So creepy guy who may or may not have tried to do terrible things to me, let's never meet again. And also, if you really don't have bad intentions for a random woman you've literally just met, maybe don't invite her to a secondary location and assume she's perfectly fine with that. I totally get what you're saying. It's so easy to say like what you would do in the situation or in these different scenarios that you could be put in. It's so easy to say what you would do, but nobody knows how they would actually react until they're put in the situation. I feel like you're 100% right with that. For me, I always tell myself, if you ever feel like you're in danger, you need to tell somebody. But then the few times where I have felt in danger, like for that time I got followed in Target, I made a story about that so long ago when I lived in Texas. I was being followed around Target by this strange man, and I was being followed down every aisle I went to. It was so weird. I always told myself if something like that ever happened, I would tell somebody, I would have somebody walk me to my car, but I didn't do that. In the moment, I just thought I need to get to my car and I need to get home immediately. I also would tell myself not to go straight home in case they're following me. And I walked to my car by myself. There was a van parked out front. I was terrified. I walked in between the cars instead of like through the lane. I walked in between cars so nobody could like snatch me, you know what I mean? But that's not what I tell myself in my head. That's not the plan that I had already made for myself in case anything like that ever happened. You don't know how you're going to react until you're in the situation. And your behavior might not make any sense, exactly like they said. My behavior made no sense. Why didn't I ask for help? Why didn't I call anybody? Why didn't I have somebody walk me to my car? And so I feel like that's a very important lesson to learn. And you also shouldn't be so hard on yourself if you don't react the way that you had previously planned to. I'm just very glad that nothing happened to you and that you did eventually realize, what the fuck am I doing? And you got out of there. But that is all I have for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other stories you want to share with me or the community, I will have my subreddit link down below. Nar has been chilling this whole time. Sorry if you hear some meowing. He's a loud boy. But I'm gonna go. I love you guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye! Would you like to see the nana? No. So I'm actually filming this on Tuesday. So the Tuesday after my birthday was Monday. Filming this on Tuesday. I had a really good birthday. We did most of the celebrating last weekend. So like over Saturday and Sunday, we did most of the celebrating. Yesterday on Monday, so Monday, whatever. On Monday, I didn't really do much. I really just sat at home pretty much all day. I had landscapers come by, so I couldn't really leave the house for like an hour or two during the day. And then when my sister was done at work, she came over. And then I went to dinner with some of my family and my friend Brittany. Like my dad came to dinner with us, and my stepmom and my sister and my brother, and it doesn't fucking matter. I don't know why I'm like listing every single person who came to this dinner. I don't know why I'm doing that. But we had a nice little dinner. We got sushi. I get fake sushi because I don't like sushi. I got fake sushi, like it's like chicken instead of fish. But we got sushi, and then I came home and I went to sleep. I was very tired. We were at dinner for like 2 hours and we had like a late dinner, so I was exhausted when I got home, and I go to bed super early anyways. And so my actual birthday was pretty uneventful, but I had fun. The weekend prior, we went to a cat cafe, which was so fun. I loved that. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw my different things that I did this last weekend, because then on Sunday we had a Euphoria night where we all dressed up as different characters and we watched the finale, which I'm not even gonna talk about it, but it was a lot of fun. I had so much fun. We went to downtown Phoenix on Saturday because I live like outside of Phoenix. We went to downtown Phoenix for the cat cafe. It's called La Gattara. I'm gonna be horrible at pronouncing that. La Gattara, something like that. Gattara. In case you're in Phoenix and you want to go, because a lot of people that I knew didn't even know we had a cat cafe in Arizona. And so it's in Phoenix, downtown Phoenix. And then we went to the Churchill after that. It's like a little, it's kind of like a food court kind of thing, but it's like a fancy food court. And it's like across the street from the cat cafe. It was so much fun. And then we went thrifting. we just went to Goodwill, but we went thrifting and I got a couple of things. I got like a cup, some cute like coffee table books, like really cute ones. And then I got a t-shirt and some pants. I don't know. I'm not gonna show you because they're in my car and I'm too lazy to go get them. They're still in my car. That's how lazy I am. I got those on Saturday. And then Sunday we had a Euphoria night, like I said. And my friend Paige came to town. She was only in town for like a day. But I also had to volunteer on Saturday morning. And I wanted to go out Saturday night, but I had been up, sorry, Norse hairs everywhere. I had wanted to go out Saturday night to go drinking, whatever, but I had been up since like 7, volunteering, and I was exhausted, so I just went home and went to sleep. I was so tired. But yeah, that was my birthday. It was a lot of fun. Sorry I'm rambling so much. Nar is needy right now, so I'm gonna give Nar some attention. I'm gonna go. But thank you for all the birthday wishes, by the way. I didn't say that yet. I had an overwhelming amount of messages on Instagram, and I was like, I tried to like read all of them. Obviously I couldn't respond to every single one. There were like hundreds and I was so overwhelmed. I think that's the most birthday wishes I've ever gotten before. And I was so like, I don't know, it was like so kind. I had so many. And so I couldn't respond to all of them, obviously. But I did read probably like 90% of them. And so thank you so much to anyone who said anything to me that was like sweet and kind and thought out. I don't know, like even just like a happy birthday was so nice because you're not obligated to like say happy birthday to me. Like, I don't know, we don't know each other. I don't know. I like to think that we know each other, but like we don't at the end of, you know, so it's just like so nice to like reach out to somebody to say happy birthday to them when like I'm just like someone, I'm just a fucking potato. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just so nice. I don't know. I just think it's really, really, really kind. But now I'm gonna go. But thank you for the birthday messages. I love you so much. So much. See ya.